Okay, good evening to everyone that's in South Africa and that is around the world. What we'll do tonight is, especially for the people who don't understand the addiction recovery, the parents, how's it, Richard? For the parents that get bullshitted by their sons who are in addiction recovery. So there's a section in the big book that calls Going Into Action. Now, we've seen this country at the moment is going into action. And the only action we're going into is lockdown and no cigarettes and no alcohol and we can't go visit our parents, etc., etc. Now, alcohol and drugs and gambling and pornography is an addiction. We know that. But so is dishonesty, because you can be addicted to lie. So is theft. You can be addicted to steal. That's what they call it, kleptomania. So there are various forms of addiction. We always normally just want to say to ourselves, okay, alcohol and drugs is the main one, but there's plenty more. So if we want to take, for instance, while the others are coming on, good evening all, is our Minister of Police, for instance, Becky Chelly, aka Chuck Norris. He lied, he got dismissed as the police commissioner. He then made a pact with Mrs. Zuma, who then made a pact with Cyril Ramaphosa, and he suddenly becomes the Minister of Police. Now we have to be, if it was an addict walking down the road, now listen to me carefully now. If an addict was walking down the road, smoking a pipe or smoking a lolly or whatever, and he got locked up, the addict would have just said, okay, fine, I'm wrong, I'm gone. But now they're targeting the innocent people. They're targeting the innocent people that are just walking down the road, maybe taking their dog for a 5-minute walk. So we're living in a draconian state. We're not even living in a state anymore where people can blame, this is addict. Because many of our policemen today, and I know a lot of policemen, they are addicts. They are alcoholics. But we got the label. So we will be labeled for the rest of our lives. What is happening in the country at the moment, and it's quite clear to see, is that the relapse rate amongst addicts at the moment is huge. It's huge all around the world. I'm on different sites and we communicate, us people who've been in this game for a couple of days, we know what we're talking about. So the relapse is huge. The other thing that is huge is the suicide. And there's no coming back. You can come back from a relapse, but you're not going to come back, as you know, from a suicide. So we're living in a country at the moment with a lot of stress. A lot of people are looking, saying, you know, when this lockdown started and they closed the bottle stores, I wrote to the minister. And I said, Minister of Social Development, this is what's going to happen. If you have a person who's been drinking their whole lives or drinking for 20, 30 years, and suddenly they have to stop alcohol, it's dangerous, they can die. I phoned the Medical Research Council, the woman who's now getting suspended because she spoke the truth, and she told me the same thing. I spoke to medical people, and they told me the exact same thing. So now these people, their lives are at stake now. That very medicine, they may not be alcoholic. You get substance abusers, or you get substance users. That's where we start. Then you get substance abusers. And then you go across the narrow line and the invisible line where you become addicted to it. Now, these people have this withdrawn from them. The same can happen to cigarettes. The irritability at home, the husband or the wife going up and down and say, hey, I need a cigarette. And I can tell you it gets very irritating because I'm a smoker. And I'm going to have a smoke just now. It's probably because, like, you can order from, only joking. Yeah, the next minute the phone is tapped. And because Becky Chelly doesn't like me at the moment because I've called him out to be a thief. And he is a thief. Because he was dismissed as Commissioner of Police. And he wasn't dismissed as Commissioner of Police because he was black. He was dismissed because he's a thief. Hi, Duncan from England. Great share the other night. So I'm going to go into action. Just to give a bit of background to our friends who are live on air here with me tonight, and thank you very much. I know it's a Saturday night. We'd normally be, but unfortunately you cannot go now. Having made our personal inventory, which we did in the steps, And Duncan also clearly explained it the other night. Having had our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude. Now, a lot of the addicts that come into my center think they are the attitude. They think they can run the center. They think they can talk shit outside to everyone to tell them, hey, run away, run away, run away, but where are you running to? They don't think, but the blood will be on their hands. They don't think that because they think they know too much because the drugs have made them clever. But we know the drugs has destroyed parts of our brain. And to discover the obstacles in our path, which we're going to have obstacles all the time. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items on our personal inventory. It doesn't only have to be addicts or alcoholics who have to take inventory. Any human being can take inventory. Where am I going wrong? Where's the anger? Where's the dishonesty? Maybe I shouldn't be saying this. Maybe I take something home from work and I know, hey, hold it. I shouldn't be stealing from my work, even if it's a ruler or a pen. There requires action on our part, which when complete will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. And we've all got defects. The addict and the alcoholic will carry more defects because our defects are more pronounced. Because when we're using alcohol or when we're using drugs, we want to be the center of the party. And when we come home and then we wake up the next morning, we look for money. And what does the addict do? He's going to steal from his mother. He's going to continue to steal from his mother because then he'll be too scared to go and steal from Johnny down the road because you go to jail. Mommy won't lock him up. And my mother locked me up 16 years ago. And thank God that she did lock me up. Otherwise, you and I and everyone on here around the world would not be chatting tonight. I hated her when she locked me up. I hated my mother. Important person. And I love her to bits. And I'll be getting her home on Tuesday. I skip the page and I go to, they never completed. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they relapsed. I'll tell you why people relapse. A, the family removed the boundaries. The family says it's going to be this way now and no other way. The family reduced the boundaries. Johnny comes home, Johnny makes his bed for one day, Johnny does the dishes, Johnny's checking where mother puts her wallet, etc., etc., etc. So when the boundaries get taken away, then mother and father want to enable the child. Okay, I'll buy you a new cell phone, my boy. I'll get this for you, my boy. Instead of saying, hey, go get a bloody job. Go look for a job. But they want to be enabled. Then mommy will buy a new TV game. I know I'm blaming the mommies now, but it's the dads as well. Let's get real here. So it's easier to lie on the couch and play TV games the whole day while your mother is your slave and you will go out and find your drugs, get your drugs on mommy's stolen rings, etc., and then come back, lie on the couch, play more TV games, and mommy will be serving you like some mate. Our kids of today, and I'm talking about kids because I'm 56, and this is South Africa. I don't know what's happening in England and France and Scotland and America. I don't know. I know when I was there what was happening, but I don't know today. Our mothers and fathers get so much hope. And they think, well, I'm sending my son to a rehab or to a treatment center. There's going to be a change. Something is going to change. So they live in hope. But while they are living in hope, the people in the rehab center, their children, are calling the shots. They want to give the terms and conditions of when they leave, when they're going to do this, what they're going to do when they come out. And most people, when they're coming to a rehab, they want to talk about everything that they've lost in life. They've lost wives, maybe husbands, they've lost money, they've lost cars, they've lost flats, they've lost houses, they've lost every bloody thing. That was me, Anthony. But very rarely in a meeting do we hear, you know what? I may have lost all that material shit, but I didn't lose my life. Other addicts had to lose their lives so we could live. Other addicts had to take the ultimate fall so we could live. Other alcoholics had to take the ultimate and pay the ultimate price for addiction so we could live. But us addicts, self-centered, ungrateful people, and we think the world, when I'm saying we think the world revolves around us. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, our thoughts is what got us into rehabilitation centers. They took inventory, right, and I took things in my life, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. So, you know, if you pack in bananas, I worked in a retail store or a retail company for a long time. If you pack in bananas and you aren't like taking out the bottom bananas because they're going to go fraught before the top bananas, you're going to lose a lot of money. And that's why we have to take personal inventory. We have to take a full inventory, and then we continue to take a personal inventory. Because after 3 weeks in South Africa, in a rehabilitation center, 90% of the people think they're cured. Now we get 3-week rehabs, don't get me wrong. 3 weeks rehab for 80,000 Rand. What an utter joke. What an utter joke. Only later on, but we have people who come in here and they think they're addiction gurus. But I'm here saved by grace. That's all I am. I'm not a guru. A guru goes to stand on a stage and he goes to earn money from talking. But there, by the grace of God, I'm 15 years sober next month. Because I opened up my ears and I listened. Our youngsters of today want to be the ones who are talking. They want to think they know this game. This game's going to kill you. This game. But we get smart asses. And I was smart asses. Because I went into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was age 25 years old. By God's grace, I could have been now, 31 years sober, but it wasn't meant to be. Because I was a smart ass. I started telling my sponsor, this is the way actually AA runs. I thought after 6 months, I could rewrite the AA book. I thought then I was the guru of AA. AA had it all wrong. I had it right. Until my sponsor warned me, listen here, my boy, you're on your way to a relapse. Me? Nah, never, ever, ever. 2.5 years later, began the 17 years of hell. The only time I'd been into a prison before was when I locked people away. But this time I became the jailed. 1.5, 2 years, somewhere around there, sleeping on the streets, putting my hands into rubbish bins to get food out, sleeping in church doorways, sleeping in shop doorways, sleeping in filthy toilets when it rained, living like a homeless bum. Hi, Angelique, you knew me when I was pissed. Sleeping like a beggie. And then in the same audacity, blaming my mother and my father for what they've done wrong in my life. It was self-pity run riot. Self-pity run riot, that we actually drip with the self-pity and we try and use the same cons that we used out there on our mothers. That's when we break our mothers and fathers' life. I'm seeing more mothers and fathers who are on prescription drugs, on antidepressants, because of the conduct of their children. But we get selfish. We get selfish that it's about me and I'm going to do what I like and I'm going to come to rehab for 3 months and I'm going to tell you it's going to be 3 months and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to face this big wide world. I'm not going to go to meetings. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to carry the message. If you don't do it, you relapse. But we pussyfoot around people We pussyfoot around people who've got addiction problems. If you baby an addict, you bury an addict. Spare my feelings, save my life. I'm no better than anyone else here around the world watching this here tonight. No better than anyone. I got a standard 7, which I'm proud of. Some people here got doctorates and degrees and they think they're slim, but they worked hard for it. But my main focus is I want to stay sober, and I must take insurance every time I give a meeting, every time I go and do a 12-step call. Now, 12-step call, for those who don't know, is that when you go out to a person's house and you go and tell them your story, hoping that they're going to put the shit down, and not to come into rehab, just to put the shit down, that they don't have to continue causing the hell that they've caused so many people. So, when I go there to do a 12-step, or when I do a meeting here, or when I'm getting invited, and I'm saying this humbly now, when I get invited overseas to go and give a talk overseas, I go there with humility, carry a message, and every time I go and carry that message at a school or a mosque, at a church, wherever you're invited, I put down a brick. And eventually that wall grows higher than me. And for me to relapse, I now have to get through that wall to my dealer or to the bottle store. I'm sober dependent on my spiritual condition. I've seen people walk into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous and walk into the doors of RAEL, wrecked, gone, over, done. Some are sitting around me now as I talk. It's Graham's birthday. He asked me to say it. Graham van Rensburg, birthday on Tuesday. Please don't forget it, world. Otherwise, I will never hear the end of it. 5 years sober from heroin. This is a very loving organization. But here we're not here to get pissed on. And here we're not here to play games when it comes to addiction recovery. Here we're not here to be conned. I'm not your mother. Don't con me. Don't even try and con me. Because you'll see what a real con is. And we want people to succeed. We want to get them jobs. We want to give them that self-esteem back again. That self-worth back again. I can't, God can. God can do all things if we let him. But most of the time I was in the driver's seat, or I was the pilot. I was the pilot of the show. Until I saw my arse and went to streets and to prison. And I can tell you, as an ex-drug squad and murder and robbery detective and a high-flying gangster, and I'm not proud to say that, it was not very nice to go to prison. But that's what waits us. Death, inevitably for all of us. But jails and institutions are waiting for the people who are sitting in rehabs today. If you do not do what you're meant to do, if you do not carry the message, if you do not go to meetings, if you do not read the literature, if you do not make amends with your family and loved ones, if you do not take your personal inventory, if you do not keep your conscious contact with God, you're only going one way. There's no quick escape and quick 2-minute noodle recovery for addiction. I wish there was. But dependent on your spiritual condition. Most of the people who come into our rehab, I even hate that word. I hate it. We're rather sober living. They come in and they've got no idea, and they say, okay, I don't like God, I'm an atheist, I'm this, I'm that. And that's okay. Because it's by our actions we show them. Not being holier than thou, but by our actions and by the miracles that happen every day. Like Richard Ferreira, came in here completely broken, today is a springbok again. Graham, 5 years ago, came in here with a toothbrush and I think a woman's dress. I don't know where he got the woman's dress from. But we can laugh about it today. Probably got it from his grandmother, I don't know. Today a qualified panel beater. Got his own panel shop on the farm. I've got AD on my left-hand side here, 3 years with me. I've got Angus, 2.5 years with me. Studying to become a carer. I've got Leroy's been here over 3 years with me. Studying to become a motor mechanic. He's far too clever. He should have done something else because he doesn't like to get his hands dirty. But he's a hard worker. I got Kurt Schuler, my manager. We've walked a long road together. I've seen that man almost dead on his bed. I've walked into that man and he was gone. He was hardly breathing. And he came back to the farm, and today he's the manager of this farm. And probably I've left out one or two names. But that's what it is. We want to be hardcore outside there. Hi, Peter. We want to be hardcore outside there. We want to be the dikdinge, the ouense. We want to gooi the nomme. Sorry, ladies, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Hospagamize. We want to speak all that crap language. And then we take a pen and we put a 26 on our shoulder and we put a 28 on our other shoulder and we think we're the ouense. And then you come into rehab and you want to use those filthy, filthy ways. We have to rechange. It's like us getting into a tumble dryer. My mother never took the clothes out wet after she had put it into the tumble dryer, because why would she have put it into the tumble dryer in the first place? It was to get it dry. That's why we need to take our inventory. We need to admit our wrongs. We need to admit, I went wrong here. We need to take responsibility as an addict and an alcoholic, that this is my call. I am wrong. Yes, people may have wronged us, but that's their issue. That's something they must live with, not me. If I've done wrong and I go and make amends, and a person doesn't like me and says, oh, well, I don't want to hear your amends, that's okay. But as long as I know that I am free, because it sets me free. One day I was very fortunate to be invited to Ohio in America to speak. And they asked me to speak on character defects. I could have kept them there for 5 hours. Because whether you're an addict or an alcoholic on anything, we all have got character defects. But character defects on its own does not make your life unmanageable. It may make it uncomfortable, but not unmanageable. And as we carry on, they only thought they had lost their egotism and fear. Ego edging God out. Ego, straight. Now we don't have to be, because we're addicts and alcoholics, suddenly we're going to become, do you have angels, bro? Yeah. Suddenly we're going to become prime pussies, no. And doormats, no. But the ego, if the day that I think I'm bigger than this game, I'm going back to where I come from. I must never forget where I come from. I can never forget where I come from. If I want to stay alive from alcoholism and from drugs, I have to remember at all times where I come from. I ended up on a park bench after being a director of a retail organization. Drugs and alcohol murdered me without burying me. But it murdered me. It murdered the love that I had for my mother and my father and for my brothers and sisters. It broke my family. And what made me go into this field and by God's grace sober today was on the 4th of 2005. When my mother came into the room and she said, Anthony, my grandson has just killed himself. He was a drug addict, was an alcoholic, 28 years old. I lie there in the bed. I was coming off one massive bender, probably had a hooker as well before, I don't know. Because that was also part of it, let's get real. Hooking, gambling, drugging, alcohol, all part of it. It's like the famous foursome. And I looked at my mother and I said, hey, Ma, but I was coming off a bender that I didn't really comprehend what was happening. Only when I eventually got up did I comprehend, hey, hold it, your nephew has just put a rope around his bloody neck and he's killed himself. I watched the family break apart. And that family was my family. They broke apart to the point that my family has never been the same again. It's taken many years to get close again as we are now. But the family is still broken. Even my mom in the old age home, my sister Leslie has never got over the death of her eldest boy, her only boy. It broke us. And 2 months later, when I sobered up on the 28th of June, which is next month, God willing, 15 years, I went for 2 years sober with a sponsor that was hard. The sponsor that didn't take shit, because if I had a sponsor that was soft, I'd be drunk tonight, drugged tonight, or dead tonight. You can't be politically correct in addiction recovery. You have to be straight. Because most of the time and all the time, when we weren't politically correct and when we were trying to be something, we were deviating anyway. Say it like it is. Spare my feelings, save my life. I'd rather you hate me and give me advice that I could live than the other way around. You don't have to like your sponsor. Your sponsor doesn't have to like you. And for the 7, and no one gave me said, hey, you're never going to make it, you're going to compete with someone. I said, no, I'm going to compete with no one. And I made it up mainly for, obviously, the addicts and the alcoholics, but for the family. Why does our mother and father have to go through so much abuse? When mom is trying to keep the peace in the house, dad is getting the mood in, and what do we do as addicts and alcoholics? We walk right through the middle. We play mom against dad. And then we realize when we get older, hold it, they don't stay here forever. But we've played mom against dad. They hadn't learned enough of humility. Now, humility can be various forms of things. But in this in this game, humility is teachability. Am I ready to be taught? No psychiatrist, no psychologist is going to tell me what it feels like to have a hangover that is so bad that my teeth are rattling, my hands are rattling, everything is sweating. I don't know where I'm going to get my next drink from. No psychiatrist, unless he's been through there. Addiction recovery works in a way that you're in a pit of hell. And I was in a pit of hell. I left school. I spent the best of 3 years of my life in Standard 8. And then I was pushed through to Standard 9. And then I wrote matric, but they never wrote back, which is... So I got a Standard 7. I'm not going to keep that as a resentment, you know what I mean? And I then left for the police force because of my sporting career. And my dream was to play international cricket. That was my dream, and I believed that I could have made it. The team's up to that. But the first time I was selected to play at Newlands, I got so drunk the night before that my mother and father were waiting in the Oaks stand, and their son never turned up. I broke my dad's heart like that. There was his young boy. My brother was a Springbok in another sport, but there was their young boy. I went to the police force. I became a drug squad, narcotic bureau detective. I became a murder and robbery unit detective. I enjoyed it. I then left. I became a director of a large retail store. I became head of investigations of a bank. Life was good. I had not lost anything until the first time that I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. Sorry for you who don't smoke. It cost about 15 rand, that drag. And when I came back, and my life had then become unmanageable. And my mom was tough on me, and my mom was my enabler. And I can tell you a little story of how my mother put me in prison. I went with some hooker about 25 years ago, and I walked into Joe, late Joe, a very good friend of mine. And I walked into his restaurant, and I said, Joe, everything that... I think this is important, what I did to my mother. This story is what I did to my mother. It's despicable what I did to her. And I walked into the restaurant and I said to Joe, you know, Joe, anything that is ordered here tonight, alcohol-wise, I'm going to pay for. I hadn't even paid for the hookah. So I had no money on me. And every time someone got a drink at a table, they would say, cheers. And then eventually my name got around there. Cheers, Anthony. Cheers, Anthony. What was I doing? What most addicts and alcoholics do. We were trying to fill a hole in the soul. We were trying to boost our self-esteem. We were trying to feel worthy. Worthy to the outside world. And when the bill came at the end of the night, Joe said to me, here's the bill. And I looked there were so many noughts and a number in front of that bill, it looked a bit big. And I was drunk. I said, Joe, phone my mother. And I went with Joe to the counter and he phoned Mom. And I was expecting Mom to say, okay, don't worry, Joe, I'll sort it out on Monday. Anthony's just gone on one of his binges again. And eventually my mom told him, F off. And my mom, a sweet, beautiful, darling woman, she doesn't swear like it. But I'm sure ladies who are watching, you get to that point sometimes that you do get a bit the mood in. And my mom got the mood in that night. And I went to the local jail in Goodwood from the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on the Monday I appeared in court. And when I arrived in court, I saw my dad sitting there, big man, my mom and my brother. And I thought, oh, thank God I'm out here. I'm out of bail. I'm leaving. Oh, no. The prosecutor called my mother into the, the prosecutor called my mom into the witness box. And for an hour, my mother explained to the magistrate exactly what she was watching. And I'll never forget one of the words or one of the lines that she said. She said, I am in the unfortunate position of watching my youngest child drink and drug himself to death. Please deny my son bail. Save his life. And I did a despicable thing. I then started questioning Mom. I thought I was Barry Roo. And I love law. And I started questioning Mom of everything that had happened since I was 5 years old. And the magistrate denied me bail. I then went on future occasions to the court and I was still denied bail. And then bail was set at 300 Rand. And my mother refused. You're going to stay in Paulsmoor. And eventually, after 9 months or something like that, my mom paid the bail and I came out. And they left Paulsmoor. And I hitchhiked home to Edgemead and I said, Mom, hello, here I am. You know what I mean? I've just come out of prison. She said, so what? Go and get sober. And that's what I went to go and do. I lived under houses in Woodstock. I lived in Gympie Street in Woodstock. I lived in Page Street in Woodstock. I used to hit her out with Bowtie. He was my main coupling. I had 3 illegal casinos. My life was completely and utterly unmanageable to the core. To the core. And when I came out of prison, I went to Necro because I couldn't get a job. And then they gave me a job at Freestyle or Free Play Radio where I had to put a thing, I had to sit there in a line and put a thing in a line. And before that, I'm driving a nice BMW Cabriolet. I just thought I was Don Johnson. Everything was going well. And that was humility. Because I remember from earning fat salaries and flying around this country, I was then earning 367 Rand 50 a week. Alcohol had beaten me. Drugs had smashed me. Everything that came with had destroyed me. But something had to give. After living on the streets, cigarettes are so scarce, you must take a drag when you get one. After living on the streets, and many a night sitting there and watching the stars and saying, hey God, where did this go wrong? Why me? Why me, God? What have I done wrong? But I knew exactly what I'd done wrong. And in between all of this, I got married a couple of times. I think I've been married just one short of Zuma. But I didn't steal the country's money. I was breaking people. I was breaking my mom because my mom, we're so close now. And she told me, You know, Anthony, that while you were in prison and while you were on the streets, my boy, I didn't sleep. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed that God would release you from the bondage of alcohol and drugs. And she continued to pray. And then the most incredible thing happened. You know, I left and I traveled a lot around this country, walk and see more, you know. In those days you could hitchhike, and I'm hitchhiking, and something happened. Because someone would stop the car and they'd say to me, "Where are you going, young man?" I was a young man there, I wasn't grey. "Where are you going, sir?" I'd be in Joburg, and he'd say, "Well, I'm going to Durban." So I said, "No, I'm also going to Durban." No, I'm going to Durban." "Where are you going to Durban?" "No, Durban beachfront." "What are you going to do there?" "No, oh, geez, I don't know." Then we get in the car and we start talking, and I put on that sorry face, you know, "Please feel sorry for me. My mother threw me out the house. My father threw me out the house. They didn't give me money. I went to a stupid school. I never ate food as a youngster." You know, all that kind of stuff we tell the people. Because we're hoping when he drops me off, he's going to give me some money so I can go buy some booze. That's how we operated. And then on the 28th of February... 28th of June. Now I must there's a lot of people online here, the hope. For anyone whose children around the world are suffering from addiction, there's hope. The only thing I can ever sell another person is hope. 28th of June 2005, I had a black guy who worked for us for a long time, Marius, for 18 years. When we had a small little business and that. But I was probably never there most of the time. And our routine was I would come out the house of my mother, we would smoke a joint, we would drink a castle lager, and then we'd go to work. Just to get us nicely on. We had a small painting business, so just to get us nicely in tune so we know not to spill the paint and all that kind of stuff. Now, when you're dakkaruk, you can paint well. And that morning I had a couple of drags of the joint. And we didn't have Castle that morning. We had Smirnoff Spin. I'll never forget it. And I picked that bottle up. And I took the one long sip because the alcoholic only has 2 sips. I took, like my mother used to ask me, "How many beers have you had, Anthony?" 2. You know, I had 2 crates. So you pick up the Smirnoff Spin, and there was about that much left. And I put it down. And I could not pick it up again. I tried to pick up that bottle again, I couldn't. I was weighing then at 48 kilos. I was a walking wreck. I was busy killing myself. In the way that I was killing myself, I was dead. I just had to be buried. And I turned around to Marius and I said to Marius, "I'm done." And he said to me, "I don't know." And he said to me, "I know." And I walked into my mother and I said to my mom, "Mom, I'm done." She said to me, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm finished, Mom. I'm over. I'm gone. I won't drink and I won't drink again ever in my life." And she just looked at me and she said, "Again, my son? Again?" How many false promises I'd given my mother. How much false hope I'd given my mother. How much false hope I'd given my father. And thank God, that was almost 15 years ago next month, that I've kept my word to my mother. I've kept my word to my daughter, or to myself, really, that my daughter will never see her dad drunk. My daughter was born to the day 2 months before I stopped drinking. What has sobriety brought us? Sobriety brings you peace of mind. Sobriety brings you serenity. Sobriety brings you a new way of looking at the world. Sobriety brings you happiness. But sobriety also brings you challenges. But turn around and say, "Well, yes, it brought me a lot of challenges and it still brings me a lot of challenges. But I'm not using alcohol or drugs as challenges." For the things that used to baffle me, it doesn't baffle me anymore. Because I now know that I can continue without alcohol and drugs. And that is what is happening in this country today. Our youth are getting so bored that they'll rather sit and play TV games, smoke their drugs, tell me that the drug dealer is their best friend, bloody lazy, entitled. And I look back, and so was I 25, 30 years ago. What has changed? Just the age of the people who are starting to use. 7 years was the youngest we've had. 7 years old. And in recovery, you find many things, and just going to close off for you quickly, because I don't want to keep you all up, because you're probably going to go, what's 7th? More than most people, the alcoholic addict leads a double, very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. Then, this is the one he likes his fellows to see. You know, nicely shaved, hair's looking nice, etc., etc., etc. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. That is the grace. By grace and mercy, today I am sober from drugs and alcohol. Today I can look after my 87-year-old mother with dementia. Today I don't have to wake up in the morning and look for that bottle or that drug first thing. Today I don't have to go and beg on the streets. Today I don't have to sleep in prison anymore. Today I don't have to sleep on the streets anymore. Today I can be a productive member of society. Productive member, and run my rehabilitation center with me as a servant, but never take a servant for granted. Because if you've got a servant at home, and one day the servant, or a helper, let's call her a helper, that's probably the right word. If she doesn't turn up, you find out exactly how much you have to do. And that's what happens in addiction recovery. People do not know what they have to do. So they try and destroy other people's life, because it's easier for another addict to go out with another addict or run away with another addict, because they're going to fall together. And it's easier to fall together than fall alone. What has RAEL done for me? It's allowed me. Oopsie. Sorry, I had a bit of a technical error there. It's like the SABC, but at least we're back. It's allowed me to travel to various countries and share the story of hope. It's allowed me to speak all over South Africa on addiction. It's allowed me to all speak at schools, colleges, you name it. I've met beautiful people. Even if I say so myself, and I say this with humility, I've helped hundreds of addicts. Hundreds. I've kept hundreds of addicts out of prison for no fee. I've kept them out of prison. They can testify. I've watched people get jobs that I've got them, that today they are employed. What does it make me? It makes me giving back service. If I keep on doing service, the chances are that I'll never pick up another drink or drug in my life is high. I have to serve my fellow man. I have to be the servant to my fellow man. But I can't be a dog or an enabler. I will never enable anyone. You want to go and drug? Go drug. You want to go and drink? Go drink. You want to go to a whorehouse? Go to a whorehouse. Ready? Come back when you're ready. Friends, I know it's Saturday night, and I'm going to close with a word that I love. I love. Amazing grace is the whole word, but just with the word grace. Thank you for listening. You know, we'll go into action again, and we'll continue. You'll hear stories of guys around here. You've heard AD, and you can Angus, and you've heard Leroy, and you've heard Carl's coming up tomorrow night. Probably the biggest con man I've ever met. He's going to come up and give his story tomorrow. You've heard Kurt, you've heard Duncan from England last night. You've heard Lee J from Newcastle in England. And we're going to make this a place of where we can learn and grow with each other. I founded this page so we can give hope to each other. Just hope, people. If this drunk can rise from the park bench, that ETV, and I say this humbly again, if I don't tell you, you're not going to know, that ENCA came to make a documentary on my life. They're not going to come make a documentary on my life if I know how to grow potatoes. Because I came from the park bench. I've got a story to tell. I've shared tonight maybe 10%, 8%, 7% of my story, but that's not important. I want to share to the mothers and fathers out there and to the addicts and alcoholics still watching. Stick to the hope. Stick to the love. Haven't we destroyed enough? Aren't you tired of the pain? Aren't you tired of the scuttle? Aren't you tired of running around people's lives? Aren't you tired of those things? Don't you want a life free of alcohol and drugs, pornography, gambling? There is another life. You just have to want it. If you want it, you'll get it. Keep coming back, as they say. Keep coming back, it works, if you work it. But if you don't want to work it and play games, you may have to pay the ultimate price. There's no pussyfooting around this disease. If you don't want it, you're going to pay the ultimate price. Close with the word, the grace. I'm grateful tonight and to be speaking to people from all around the world. I'm very grateful to have had a beautiful, sober afternoon, fun with some of my men and the doctor. Having fun. I never thought our provisions. It was fun. And these men who were with me have got they got a long way to go. But at least they're willing to go to the extra length. Yeah, maybe I've got this on my heart to tell you this of hope. After I came out of prison about 4, 5, 6 years later, I was walking through Tiger Valley. And a man came up to me and he said, "How are you, Anthony?" I said, "How's it?" I didn't know who he was. "How are you, sir?" Because he was older than me. He says, "Your mother must be very proud of you today." So he says, "I've seen you on the TV, I've seen you on the newspapers, you're doing very well." And I said, "Wow, thank you, sir. I don't know you, but I'm just going to say thank you." He says, "Don't you recognize me?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "I'm the man that denied you bail in Goodwood Court." He hugged me, and I turned left and he turned right, and I cried my eyes out, leaving Tiger Valley, how the world had come around, how my life had turned around, that imagine 6 years later. So the G's of the grace is the gratitude to be sober tonight, the gratitude to talk to friends around the world, the gratitude to own a rehabilitation center, the gratitude to still have my mother alive and moving in with me on Tuesday, the gratitude that my family is slowly but surely coming together, the gratitude that there are people in my care that God has entrusted to me, and my team can make a change in their lives if they want it. The gratitude to watch men grow into upstanding citizens of this country. The R is the respect. I respect myself, and without self-respect, I cannot give respect to a fellow man. Respect is earned. It cannot be given. It cannot be demanded. It is earned. respect. The A is the acceptance. I accept that I suffer from an illness. That if I don't look after myself, trust God, clean house, and carry them, I'm going to die from that illness. The C is the courage to change. I'm a big believer in that we change. And the people that do change have got a hell of a lot of courage in their bodies. It takes courage to change. It takes a loser to walk away. But it takes courage to change. And there are many beautiful, wonderful people and many beautiful and wonderful organizations around the world that will help you change. And don't forget, God is in all power, in charge to help us change. Remember, it's conditional on our spiritual condition, whether I'm going to drink or drug again. Whether a needle is going to go in an arm. Whether a tick lolly is going to go in a mouth. Whether a bottle is going to go in a mouth. On our courage, on our faith, on our love for our fellow man. And taking the bloody cotton wool out of your ears and stuffing it in your mouth and listening. Listen to people who've been down the road. The ease, the empathy. We've got a pandemic long before the coronavirus. We've got a pandemic of addiction in South Africa. I saw the pandemic of addiction in New York. I saw my crocodile drug case in Tel Aviv in Israel. But in my home country of South Africa, we've got a pandemic that drugs are killing our children quicker than the coronavirus. And that's no joke. Because when you bury a drug addict, he doesn't get in the newspaper unless you're famous. You're probably not even going to get in the death column. It's just another junkie gone. And people will say, well, he was a junkie, he deserved it. He was a druggie, he was a drunk, he deserved it, so just put him away. And your mother and father will be there to pick up the pieces. The ease, the empathy, pray that we can continue staying sober. But if I'm doing the next right thing today and I do the next right thing tomorrow, the next right thing is bound to happen. It must happen. We can get to the that many have think that they have gone too low in their lives. Many have think that I can't get out of this pit. Let me tell you how you get out of this pit. And then I'm going to close. I was in that pit screaming out for help. Screaming and screaming, God help me. And the self-pity and, Mommy, why were you like this? Daddy, why were you like this? My brother got shoes and I got tackies and all this crap. All this nonsense, man. Making every excuse. But I suffered from the disease and I needed someone to help me with that disease. And the doctor came past and said, okay, my boy, I can hear your screams. Here's a script. Go get yourself some medication. You'll come right. And I continued to scream. I needed help. And the pastor came past. Okay, he didn't want money, but probably they normally do. And he prayed for me, the real genuine ones who've got time for people still. And I say that with respect because I haven't got time to listen to a watered down gospel. I'd rather listen to my dog bark. And then the psychiatrist came past while I'm screaming for help and he says, hey, you need your head read. Probably true. Come see me when you're out of here. And there far in the distance walks a man and he gets into the pit with me. And I look at this man and I say to him, what are you doing? in an arrogant way? I'm trying to get out the pit, screaming for help, and here you've got in the pit with me. What are you doing? And he says to me, listen here, boy. The reason I've got into the pit is because I've been there and I know the way out. God bless you and thank you until we meet again tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and it will be Carl speaking. Thank you all for watching. God bless you.